Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's show. We have a great one for you. We're talking about the latest in terms of Donald Trump's drive to return to normal. He says, in a very Hillary Clinton-esque way, he feels great. We'll also give you the latest of the debate. Trump's taxes, break down a controversial article about Matt Taibbi defending QAnon, and talk about some things going on in Michigan that are crazy. That's all on today's episode of News Flash. Thank you so much for joining us, and take a look at the history there. That Michigan militia, absolutely crazy stuff. What the FBI is saying happened out over there with the pretty far-fetched plot to kidnap and assassinate, who even knows, Governor Gretchen Whitmer. Which, I mean, I think if you're being at all logical here, you got to look at some of the role with the president tweeting "Liberate Michigan." Like, that had nothing to do with it. I mean, who knows? But I think it's actually I think I actually do know, and I think it's very fair to say that he did play some sort of role in it. But anyway, we start off though with Trump's kind of really hilarious drive to, again, as the leader of the free world. You have to, at least with these people, you got to take a step back sometimes and remind yourself that these people are technically the most powerful people on the face of the earth in all intents and purposes. And I mean, it kind of does remind me of the Tywin Lannister Tyrion exchange from Game of Thrones, where if you're not familiar, these are two power brokers in the show. And they're referring to the king who's sitting there kind of, and I hate to do the traditional comparing Donald Trump to Joffrey of Game of Thrones, but I mean, it does kind of fit. Just like the idea that Trump is the guy who's really making the decisions and really pushing things, especially with the state he's in, especially with his deep and now more incredibly profound connection to steroids now that he has receiving dexamethasone or whatever it's called. That's the heavy steroid that he's insisting that he is not a heavy steroid that he is continuously taking at the moment. But here's the crazy part. He did a blitz of interviews earlier this week, desperately trying to convince people, I feel great, folks. Nothing bad is happening here. We are all good. We're in the clear. No need to fret. We will be just fine. Nothing bad's happening. We have it under control, folks. But he apparently now hopes to hold campaign rallies this weekend. But he was trying to anyway, but that faded on Friday after they met with skepticism and alarm from outside medical experts. He tried to get a doctor's statement and everything. He tried to prove to everybody that he's better, he's ready to go. And I don't know why he would feel any kind of rush to get back there on the debate stage. I mean, he saw what that did for his polls, right? Historically bad polls, losing 16. If you're down 16 in national polls, and a relatively reputable pollster like Quinnipiac says Biden's up 11 in Florida, what are you doing there? What is the strategy? Just be yeah, I'm sick. I'm really, really sick. You really do want to get out of the next debate, because, I mean, I was kind of skeptical when people said it originally, but you see the polling bounce from it. It is horrific. It is worse than anybody ever could have imagined. So he called into Sean Hannity's show on Fox News on Thursday night and said he wanted to hold a rally in Florida on Saturday, another in Pennsylvania on Sunday. That came after the White House physician Sean Conley, again, who's completely got this whole situation under control, of course, announced that Trump could safely return to public engagements on Saturday, a timeline that was questioned by outside experts. And again, we're barely past day 9 of his diagnosis, which is supposed to be the critical stage, and he can barely appear on TV without, again, literally when he was on Sean Hannity last night, muting himself on the phone to let out a cough. So that is what we are at with, he has COVID. It's very bad. And he will not be in any kind of public engagements anytime soon. I don't know if he's going to check in on the virtual debate. I don't know what's going to happen with that. But maybe it would be better if he just lays low on this one, because the 1-2 punch of that horrific, awful debate performance where he just came off like a mean, nasty, just like petty, awful person. Now more than ever. I mean, he was cool. It was cool when he was doing it in 2016, but now it's just like, dude, shut up and go away. Like you're doing this again as you are currently killing thousands of people by the day through your gross incompetence. Or I shouldn't say 1,000, but I mean pretty close to that. Like the inability to get the situation under control is just it's criminal, and it's so many people are realizing that, and then he comes out on the stage and starts acting like starts interrupting people, starts just acting like a real asshole, and nobody is going to respond well to that. And I think he really started to realize that with hopefully for him, he has started to realize that and maybe make some adjustments. Hopefully, really for the country, because it's just. And anyone who has to watch that next debate, because no one wants to go through that again. Outside medical experts said that an inappropriately expedited return to the public for Mr. Trump could risk infecting others. Again, not that he cares about that. And resuming public duties might worsen his condition, which could still deteriorate over the next several days. COVID-19 patients can take turns for the worse during the second week of the illness. And remember, until Herman Cain finally croaked after going to one of Trump's rallies, it was like 39 days, 40 days until Herman Cain passed away. So it is not like you can just pop right up and be like, okay, we're good. It's all right. No, like it's just not how it's going to work. Based on the information provided, no, I would not clear him to start a public engagement on Saturday, said Dr. Phyllis Teen, an infectious disease physician at the University of California, San Francisco, where she conducts and advises on COVID-19 clinical trials. If the president recently came off of dexamethasone, a steroid normally administered only to severely sick COVID-19 patients, his well-being could take a dip in the next several days, said Dr. Krutika Kupali, an infectious disease physician based in South Carolina. Then there are potential risks Trump could pose to others. According to CDC guidelines, people with mild to moderate cases of COVID-19 should probably probably remain infectious, most likely remain infectious, no longer than 10 days after the onset. Dr. Conley's statement said Saturday as day 10 since Thursday's diagnosis. So Dr. Tien said she was skeptical of such an assessment for these reasons. The slew of treatments Trump received suggests that his disease was severe, which could extend the duration of his recommended isolation to 20 days after the onset of symptoms. So that is the question. Like, really what we have to kind of figure out here is, was Trump's diagnosis, was it mild or was it more severe? And are they just throwing everything in the kitchen sink at him because he's the president? And I don't know. That is the question I think that we have to figure out. And I mean, judging on kind of just the normal treatment of things, I would say it's probably the second one. Like, if I had to just take a vibe check on that one, I'd say my temperature check, it would be the second one. Trump might be able to end his isolation early if he tested negative using a very accurate laboratory test, Tien said, but no such results were reported on Thursday's memo, which mentioned only a trajectory of advanced diagnostics. So that is the big thing as well, because what is the isolation looking like for Trump at this point? I don't think it's like he's hunkered down in the residency, he's not going to leave, and all his work's being delivered to him, and people are like bringing him tea and coffee and trying to get him to feel better. No, I'm sure he is like up and about. Like that's what the reporting's been. He's been talking to everybody. He's been having a good time. Like, it's been absolutely like nothing's going on here. But this is something that really people have been starting to notice. Like, I mean, the question is, like, if Trump is a normal person, like, would he be like allowed to buy a house right now? That is a legitimate question, I think, that people are starting to ask, looking at how this guy's appearing in public and what he's been tweeting, especially, just judging off of the numerous, the very, very high amounts of drug he's been on in recent days. So the House Democrats have decided to take some action on that. They're proposing a commission to determine whether the president is fit to govern. Speaker Nancy Pelosi elevating questions about President Trump's fitness to govern introduced legislation Friday that will create a bipartisan group of outside experts should be nonpartisan really, to evaluate his mental and physical health and advise Congress whether his powers should be forcibly removed, at least temporarily. under the 25th Amendment. The measure has no chance of enactment under Trump, whose signature would be needed to make it law. A version was introduced before the president was hospitalized with the coronavirus, but in public presenting it now, Pelosi, who has suggested that the drugs the president has received to treat the virus may have affected his mental state, is again just trying to move to call some attention to this issue, which is probably pretty sensible. I mean, I think it's like she's completely right there. I mean, Amendment 25, whenever the vice president and a majority of either principal officers of the executive departments or of such other body as Congress may by law provide, transmit to the president pro tempore of the Senate and the Speaker of the House of Representatives the written declaration the president is unable to discharge the powers and duties of his office, that the vice president shall immediately assume the powers and duties of the office as acting president. So that is what they're trying to do, and that is pretty much the basis of the 15th Amendment, if you are unfamiliar. Or sorry, the 25th Amendment, and here is Nancy speaking about it.
The situation has focused everybody's mind.
Sorry, this is Jamie Raskin of Maryland.
For following through on this suggestion in the 25th Amendment that Congress set up its own body. And I think, again, in the age of COVID-19, where a lot of government actors have been afflicted by it, we need to act.
And this is a comfort to people, that it's not about who's in power saying, I don't like the way he or she is acting. It's about a process that is bipartisan, based in the Constitution, giving Congress the power to do this, which Congress hasn't done.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like, look at what the guy is tweeting. Like, look at what the guy is conducting. Like, honestly, if it's someone else taking his phone, that's probably even more disturbing. Maybe they have COVID. Like, who even knows? But it appears that, yeah, not all is well with President Trump. So the president raged against the idea, calling Pelosi crazy Nancy and accusing her of staging a coup, which is like Mike Pence is going to be a coup, really. Kayleigh McEnany, the White House press secretary, called the measure an absurd proposition on Friday and countered that Pelosi was projecting. So that's a little bit of a insult there, a little punch back. Like you'll love to see it. But yeah, so here we have the hilariously constitutionally accurate quote. The one who needs to be looking at the 25th Amendment is Nancy Pelosi herself. And of course, the 25th Amendment, again, only applies to the president. But her point there, I mean, you don't have to be a nerd to understand the point that she's making there. The measure was introduced by Representative Jamie Raskin of Maryland. It would create an 11-member commission of health experts, doctors, and former senior executive branch officials, such as a former president, to report to Congress on the president's competence. Top Democratic and Republican leaders of the House and Senate would select members. Republicans blasted the legislation as an attempt to overturn the results of the November election. Right here in the last 3 weeks before the election, I think those kind of wild comments should be largely discounted. So what could go wrong? What important policy positions could happen in the next 3 weeks? Like, maybe any of them pertaining to the fact to the 5 different crises that we're currently in right now. Like, maybe one of those. Just a thought. Who even knows at this point? Do want to get to some other stories today. A judge refused to extend Florida's registration deadline, despite a glitch that may have blocked thousands. Even though a crash of Miami's voter registration website in the hours before Monday night's deadline may have prevented thousands of new voters from signing up, a federal judge declined on Friday to order the state to reopen registration to make up for the lost time. So, the judge is named Mark E. Walker, Federal District Court in Tallahassee, harshly criticized Secretary of State Laurel M. Lee, Florida's top elections official and appointee of Ron DeSantis, a Republican. But he concluded that extending the deadline would overwhelm the county's election supervisors with the vote already underway, pointing the state's notorious elections history. Notwithstanding the fact that state numbers across the country remain closed, somehow I feel like I've seen this movie before. Judge Walker's 29-page ruling began just shy of a month before Election Day. With the earliest mail-in ballots beginning to be counted, Florida has done it again. So, again, literally just one of the... Walker was appointed by President Barack Obama. He harshly criticized the state for hastily implementing what he called the half measure, announcing at noon on Tuesday the deadline would be only expended until 7 p.m. that day. So it sounds like he is kind of railing against Florida's incompetence there. In some other news, with South Carolina, a surprising Senate battleground, a Democratic group has launched an attack ad or two on Lindsey Graham. That's Move On.